Welcome to a Spiritual World podcast, a space where we explore the vastness within and around us, a place to remember that you are a spiritual world within a spiritual world, the mind within the mind of the all. Here, we journey beyond programming, past the pain, and into the true essence of our sovereignty. My name is Toria, and my sole mission is for you to find the guru within and remember yourself as the creatrix of your world, embodying the power within you to build a life you love. As always, you're encouraged to go back to episode 1 for the full disclaimers on the terminology of mystic psychology. I am not a medical professional, and nothing shared in this podcast is intended to replace professional medical or mental health care. The term mystic psychology is not used in a clinical or medical context and has no connection to the medical field or industry. It is a spiritual and energetic framework rooted in the ancient wisdom and sciences of Hermeticism, intended to support self-exploration and inner awakening. If you are seeking medical advice, diagnoses, or treatment, please consult a licensed medical or mental health professional. Everything shared here is based on my own personal lived experiences and energetic perspectives, offered in the spirit of empowerment and remembrance. Please take what you need and leave the rest. I am honored to walk beside you as a channel, a guide, and a fellow traveler as we continue on this path together. Welcome back, spiritual ones, to this special bonus transmission of A Spiritual World. In our last gathering, we ended with the recognition that both Hermeticism and Judaism point to an original androgynous source, a primordial unity that expresses itself through polarity without ever losing its oneness. Today, we are going to step directly in to the human story that mirrors that cosmic pattern. The story encoded in ancient texts, carried through mystical traditions, and preserved in the subconscious of humanity itself. Today, we uncover the lost human story of androgyny, division, and return. This is the story of Lilith, the cosmic feminine, and Eve, the embodied feminine, as well as Adam, the one who once was two, and the primordial moment where the human soul learned what it meant to be split, not as punishment, which is how so many of us have perceived it for far too long. Instead, it was for preparation. So take a deep breath with me and feel yourself soften into receptivity. Because what we are about to explore is not mythology. It's memory. Memory of what humanity once was, what humanity still is, and what humanity is becoming once again. Across traditions, the earliest accounts of humanity describe an androgynous being. Some perspectives are as a physical, others a light form, both containing masculine and feminine in complete harmony. Hermeticism calls this primordial human, an anthropos. It's the image of the divine before it divided. And Judaism calls this being the Adam Kadmon, not a man, but the cosmic human who existed before physical form. Plato describes this same being through Aristophanes' words: a creature with 2 faces, 4 arms, 4 legs, 1 unified consciousness, and no separation between masculine and feminine qualities. Different traditions, yet the same blueprint. The first human was not split. The first human was whole, a reflection of that divine androgyny itself. In the Mantis state, that humanity was born as a sphere of consciousness, not as a line divided into opposites. The first division was a teaching tool, not a punishment. And the return to wholeness is the final step of evolution. This androgynous being, this original template that we speak of, is still inside of you. It is the reason that you long for union, the reason that you feel incomplete at times, and the reason relationships can feel like mirrors rather than encounters. You are trying to remember what you once were and what you will be again. And while the earliest mystical texts describe this primordial human as a light being of unified polarity, other ancient traditions, especially Greek and Mesopotamian, describe an androgynous physical form as well. That Plato version, right? The being with 2 heads, 4 arms, 4 legs, and an undeniable, radiant power. Some stories say that these beings ended up going to war with the gods because the gods feared their power. They watched them on earth gaining strength and intelligence, and they were jealous and became deceitful. Other stories state that the androgynous became jealous and deceitful, for they wanted the gods' power. They wanted to rule themselves and rule earth from the standpoint of being a god themselves. Either way, the story ends the same. They were split into 2. Supposedly, that's why we have the belly button. However, let's view these myths through a Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Mantis-guided lens for a deeper truth to emerge. One where we no longer live out punishing patterns, punishing storylines, or ever thinking that humanity was here to be punished in any concept. Because while both of those androgynous stories are true, they also both describe different layers of the same cosmic event. When you have a breakup, your story is different than your ex's. However, they're the same story, just different perspective through each individual's own lens of experience. And so the light body androgyny describes our metaphysical origin. And the physical androgyny describes the embodied echo of that same unity. It doesn't really matter if this story played out in light form or sound form or physical form. And to be honest, if it played out in one of those forms, it most certainly played out in all of those forms. Because as above, so below. They are all an expression of the overall one sacred blueprint. And the splitting in every version has been misunderstood and misperceived for centuries because we have been so addicted to being a punishing civilization, a punishing pattern, a punishing perspective. Maybe it's because we're not as easily identifiable androgyny, right? Like, we don't look at ourselves as androgyny because we identify ourselves by sex. When the reality is that the etymology of gender is generational. And that the sex that we are born into, it's a whole different thing, whole different ballgame. And we can talk about that in a future episode. So the splitting has been misunderstood for centuries. Yet when we view it from a higher conscious plane, it becomes so much more clear, so much more understandable, so much more loving. Because it was never punishment. It was never retaliation. It was never divine anger. Except for punishment is probably anger at ourselves, if we're being honest. And it was not the gods weakening humanity, for we are the gods and they are us. It was all activation. We're going to anchor the Mantis beings in here for some clarification and some beautiful channeled words of wisdom. For they say, in reiteration, that the split was not retaliation, it was calibration. The soul was given polarity so it could discover its own depth. What appeared as loss was the beginning of remembrance. To be found, you must once be lost. And to be lost, you must once be found. How many ways can we break you apart? To lose yourself, to remember yourself again. Think of the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, the Mantis beings, all the frequencies. Those are all the infinite number of ways that the cosmos, that you have been split apart to lose yourself, to find yourself once again. The so-called war between humans and gods is completely symbolic. A metaphor for the tension between unity and individuality. The split is not a fall. It is a birthright. Because creator consciousness, the all, the Ein Sof, the infinite, has always had a plan for humanity. And I could sit here and give you one perspective of it, right? The one that says we were not meant to be diminished. We were always meant to be empowered. And that we were not meant to be broken. We were always meant to be prepared. We were never meant to be silenced. We were always meant to awaken. And that none of it was to prevent our evolution, and instead it was to guarantee it. However, I look at it from a dualistic language point. Things that have occurred were meant to diminish us so we could understand what true empowerment was once we found it. Circumstances were absolutely meant to break us so we could find our courage and our strength, and we could be prepared for what is to come. And there were times that we were absolutely meant to be silenced. Yet that silencing provokes us to awaken more and more. And in some circumstances, absolutely meant to prevent our evolution. However, we've also been guilty of preventing our own evolution. As above, so below. The prevention of our evolution, or even the threat of the prevention of our evolution, is going to guarantee the thriving of it, past survival. When we perceive these ancient myths with spiritual eyes, we see that humanity's division is not a cosmic tragedy. It is a cosmic strategy. It is the embodiment and the understanding of the polarity and the duality as one. It ensures that we rise. And to rise, we have to have a place to rise from, not as subjects of the gods, as sovereign creators ourselves. Before humanity split, the divine split, Hermeticism calls this the first polarity, and Judaism calls this the Tzimtzum. And if you want to know how to spell it, it's Tzim, Tzum. For some reason, I just love that word. The infinite contracts into itself with Tzimtzum. It creates a point of tension and releases a spark. The masculine and feminine currents of creation, the coiled snake. Light appears, shadow appears when light appears. And expansion appears because now you have duality. And contraction appears back into non-duality. And the inhale and the exhale begin, birthing it all in and out through the flower of life. The masculine recognizes the feminine, and the feminine recognizes the masculine, and creation begins as a symbiotic and beautiful relationship. Not hierarchy, but harmony. Not domination, but instead reflection, and not punishment. Instead, it's expression. Hermeticism names these poles activity and receptivity. And Judaism names them chokmah and binah. The spark and the vessel, the breath and the space that holds it, the word and the womb, like we mentioned in the main episode. Every act of creation mirrors these two to equal, drumroll please, the Trinity, right? The Trinity of Keter. Every desire, every breath, every thought reenacts the first cosmic love story over and over and over again. Our search for consistently falling in love, even, falling in love with that same person over and over again. It's the cosmic mind living that out through us so we can experience what it experienced, and so it can experience it a timeless number of times again. The Hebrew text says that male and female, he created them, and he called their name Adam. The original human was a unity of two forces. Later, Adam is described as separated. And mystical tradition agrees. Adam did not lose his feminine. Adam externalized it. Man. Adam, man. Humanity is called man. There is woman, but the overall consensus is that we are man. Finding our femininity once again that we have externalized. That's a whole rabbit hole to go down, isn't it? It's what all of this is about, isn't it? However, this is where we kind of step away from the Kabbalah. And because, this is the bonus episode off of the episode of Judaism and Hermeticism. However, it's spurred because androgyny, right? At the end of my main episode, I was talking about androgyny and how it has spurred all of these memories from the psychosis and the visions and just the understanding of where we have traveled, where we have come from, what our roots in our soul lead back to. And that brought me back to Lilith, in all honesty, because where does Lilith fit in, right? Lilith is not in the Kabbalah. And it's really interesting because there's also perspectives and experiences that Earth or certain parts of human form and the experiences that we have had as humanity were created without a masculine counterpart. That the feminine supposedly had gotten ambitious, right? As we do, and as we rightfully so should. And she got ambitious and she created her own being from herself without masculine identity. And supposedly it reared what we would call an ugly head and became dominant and became, basically cast mother aside and just wanted subservience from everything in existence that it created. And it reminds me so much of the story of Lilith and Adam as well, right? Androgynous beings, even though the mother didn't use the feminine didn't use the masculine counterpart to create this son, the feminine always had masculine in her. So there's the androgynous being, right? And then also we have the tale as old as time of Adam and Lilith being created in the same dirt together at the same time as equals. Now, a mother creating a son creates them as an equal. A mother creating a daughter, a father, all of those create them ultimately as an equal. And so it's still the same concept. And what ends up happening in our understanding of what roots us in humanity is that the woman gets cast away, gets cast aside. In both of those stories, the son or being Adam, both of the women wanted equality. They wanted to nurture and guide and create and be seen as equals, just like the sky and the water. However, these masculine components could not agree to that. And so Lilith left, and the mother creator had to go and get help from all of other creation, however we want to word it. And it's such, like I said, all of these different languages and dialects to really understand where our souls are coming from. Both of the feminine's departures from the earthly or the spiritual narrative was never rebellion. They didn't leave because they didn't want anything to do with the masculine. However, they were meant to leave for these experiences so they could return back to their cosmic resonance, which was the vibration that each of them emerged from in different contexts. However, all of the feminine is the pure primordial force. And for some time being, they needed to be unaltered by human structure, unaltered by hierarchy or the stories that we know, right? It's like how we know that rejection is just redirection, and that when someone leaves our lives or we're separated from someone, it's really to benefit us, it's to protect us. It's so we can remain unaltered by them in a way that would really do more harm than good to humanity and consciousness overall. So, I love this episode. It's not as compact as I thought it was going to be. It's not as maybe even fluid as I was hoping for, because I really, really love fluidity and when things just flow together. However, this is where my brain went, right? We're talking about androgyny, so we jumped to when we had all the limbs and double the head, and we're going to war, but ultimately with ourselves. And then also this war between the feminine and the masculine. And at the same time, it's never really a war. It serves a purpose. And we're finally getting to unveil parts of those purposes so that way we can really understand that where we've been should not hold shame or blame or more fighting, more blaming, more war, more any of that. Where we have been has served us for where we are going, and no one can quite see it yet. I couldn't see it for a very long time. I couldn't see it in my years of trauma. I couldn't even see how trauma served me, right? And now my eyes are so wide open. It's like a breath of fresh air. It's like I can drink from the ocean and the sky at the same time. So, and then when we bring Eve into all of it, right? Because after Lilith's return to the infinite waters, the texts and the scriptures that we know describe Eve's formation from Adam's ribs, right? And this is that externalization, that seeking what we need outside of ourselves. That's the symbology of that. That Eve emerges from Adam's inner feminine essence. She might not immediately be cosmic like Lilith, as above, so below. So she is cosmic, but it's not in the same way. She is an embodiment, a relational, grounded, more design for partnership within the physical plane than the original creations of Lilith and Adam were, at least in my perspective. And I'm ready for that to evolve, expand in any way, shape, or form at any point in time. However, the three of them create the elegance of the Trinity. And a lot of times we see masculine, 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 right? Here, at the root of all of it, is feminine, feminine, masculine. But really feminine, 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 because it's all about Adam's inner feminine being made external. Lilith, the cosmic feminine, the vast, infinite, uncontainable. Eve, the embodied feminine, relational, earthly, integrative. And Adam, Adam's inner feminine, the intuitive, emotional, receptive polarity, the part of Adam that Eve expresses into form. The Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, it's all written on masculine genre. However, the real foundation of it is all feminine. Whew, that's a breath of fresh air, isn't it? This is the truth that was always hidden beneath the distortions. And as we near the end of this bonus episode, the Mantis beings breathe this transmission into life within us. The split was never personal, was never punishment in a personal way. Because it was definitely personal, am I right? Instead, it was preparation. The soul learns unity through duality, and the one remembers itself by seeing itself twice, even thrice. So why does humanity feel so incomplete? Why do we long for connection? Why do we search for our other half? Why do relationships mirror our deepest wounds? Some of it we could totally blame Disney for. However, ultimately, that ache and that yearning was there long before Disney. And it's because the soul remembers being one. And the psyche remembers being divided. However, psyche and soul are one. They're the same. The etymology of psyche is soul. So your longing is not dysfunction. Your longing is a memory. The Platonic myth of the split human, the Adam Cadman, Lilith and Eve, the divine androgyny, they all whisper the same truth. You are seeking reunion within yourself. Another person can reflect it, and the final alchemy happens internally. And the Mantis beings affirm this. You were never split to find another. You were split to find yourself. And unity begins within. Even twin flames are nothing but a full reflection back to the self. And so the return, healing that cosmic split. The journey of this lifetime is not to become half of something. It's to become whole once again. To reconcile your inner masculine and feminine. To honor your cosmic feminine, Lilith, and nurture your embodied feminine, Eve, and stabilize the balanced masculine that holds all three in harmony. This is an alchemical marriage. It's a union of opposites and a sacred reunion that every soul aches and longs for. So remember, you are not broken. You are remembering. You are not half of anything. You are returning to your wholeness. You are not missing something. You are integrating everything. Hermeticism, Kabbalah, the Mantis teachings, and your own soul wisdom all converge here in this moment of time. The human path is the journey back into the original androgynous wholeness, not by bypassing polarity, instead by harmonizing it. This is healing. This is awakening. This is becoming the full, authentic, unapologetic you. And this is one of the secrets Lilith, Eve, and Adam have been guarding since the beginning, waiting for us to remember. And with that is our amazing bonus episode. Thank you so much for being here and walking this road with me. Namaste and many blessings on your way.